Today, we're looking at a pink ink by Herbin Bouquet d'Antan. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, if you like fountain pen ink reviews, I would invite you to subscribe. Also, if you're interested, you can follow me over on Instagram. In order to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then inked up this Sailor My First pen with a medium fine nib, wrote with it for a day, and then took the notes for this video. In order to have some standardization in my writing samples, I always use Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it came in a vial like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X 450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X 750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some very nice shading in the writing. Extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub. With no feather spread, halo sheen, it does offer some shading throughout its writing with 6 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, some very nice shading going on, 8 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both do show us some good color variation, and we do get it in the writing. Tomoe River, no bleeding, a very minor Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 10 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen. A couple spots of shading do occur, like the beginning of brown is a little darker than the end of brown, or the K in quick. There's a couple spots. 13 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby of the extra fine shows color variation, the medium shows none, but that's opposite of what we actually got. Rhodia. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some nice shading. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, spots of shading throughout, just speckles, 7 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, more of those peppered in dark spots than we got with the extra fine, and 9 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us good color variation, and we do get it in the writing. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And this truly is a pink dye. You see that it just works its way up just as you would kind of expect a single dye to work in a chromatography. Now the one on the right that I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water, we do see that it starts to form a little bit of a pink line across the bottom, giving you a hint that it might try to be a little bit resistant. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I would not use this in a note-taking situation because of how faded the G and H are starting to become. The pigment is really, or the dye is really starting to get washed out of this, which makes me worry about losing what I wrote. Now, water's reactivating and lifting some of it, but not all of it. That's from the paper, from my pen. Water's all that it took. If for some reason it wasn't enough, you see that pen flush is completely reactivating and lifting it off of the paper. 1/3 bleach solution completely removes it from the paper, although there's no reason you would ever need to use that. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. I'm also linking a video that shows how I do my testing and my calculations. Herbin Bouquet d'Antan has a viscosity of 1.73, making this a wetter ink. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average those. Now for the inks I've tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Herbin Bouquet d'Antan has an average dry time of 9 seconds, making this a faster drying ink. Instead of finding inks that look like J. Herbin's Bouquet d'Etain, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. So I went with a nice blue, and I chose Robert Oster's Midnight Sapphire. The second writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia and white lines paper. Here we're looking at the yellow Rhodia, not to see a performance change that would happen from the regular Rhodia, but more to see what kind of a tone change we might undergo for having the yellow paper. And it is a slightly different pink when you look specifically at the scrubbies, or you look specifically at the 1.1, you see that it becomes a bit more of a red, but it's like it's a darker pink, but not any more vibrant or anything else. But it's just interesting to see. White lines paper. So we get no bleeding and no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen. It has no shade. The extra fine is just a little bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, spots of shading, spots that are a little bit darker than other spots, but that's about it. Like the up and down of the K is a little bit darker than what's right around it. The B, as it loops down, is a little bit darker than the rest of brown, but that's all that we're getting. 2 seconds to dry. Medium is just a tad lighter than the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen. Those spots of shading are a little more obvious to spot here, like the K, the B, the N, the F, and the X. So it does shade much better. 3 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both do show some color variation in far left to far right, and we do get it in the writing samples. And that is all that I have for the writing samples. So what do I think of J. Herbin's Bouquet d'Etain? I think this is a great example of why so many people avoid pink inks. It's so light, it's difficult to read. It's also a good example of where people feel that a lot of J. Herbin inks are undersaturated and too pale, because this is very difficult to read on the page. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience? The only pen that I was really able to get great experience was from a wet broad, where it put enough down to make it so that I could easily read the words on the page, not completely easily, but not strain my eyes to read it. If you've made it this far and you've enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I'm going to remind you to subscribe. Thanks for watching.